The atmosphere in Huntsville was a little different that morning. Soft winter breezes played through the leaves of the trees as if the city had breathed for the first time in a long time. 3 months had passed since the court's final decision, but the day was still alive in people's hearts. The day when justice changed not only the law, also the boundaries of relationships. MelodyShari Rajas, once the shining light of the superstar show Love and Marriage, Huntsville, has now become the epitome of an ordinary yet strong woman. Her foundation, Mothers for Peace, grew from a local group to a nationwide movement. Every day he would receive dozens of messages. "You inspired us. Your story changed my life." But Melody knew all these praises were not just words, but the cries of women who had been silent for years. That morning, while she was sitting on the porch of her house drinking coffee, her daughter came and said, "Mom, today at school we have to talk about our hero." Melody smiled. "So what are you going to talk about?" Betty replied thoughtfully, "About you. Because you've never been afraid of a lie." Hearing this, a slight smile appeared on Melody's lips, but her eyes filled with moisture. She knew that the price of this trip wasn't just Femette, was her children's innocent childhood, her peace, her heart. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, MartellHolt sat in his small office going over his new business plans. Her old awards were still on the wall, but beneath them was a new frame, a picture of the children. This was the same picture he took during his first monitored visit. The 3 children were laughing, and Martell's face showed relief for the first time. "Perhaps that's the real success, winning back the heart," he said to himself. After some time, his phone rang. It was from a famous Grammy producer. "Martell, we're launching a new spin-off of the show, but only if both you and Melody are ready. People want to see a new beginning, not the end of your story." Martell was silent for a few moments. Then he said softly, "I don't want to come back to TV. I want to come back to life." Late at night, as Melody was on her laptop preparing for next week's Mothers for Peace event, she received an email. The subject line read, "A father's cry, help needed." The letter read, "I am the father who is going to the courts to see his daughter. I know you don't know my story, but I want someone to tell my daughter that her father is not bad, just misguided." Melody closed the laptop after reading the letter. She sat still for some time. Martell's face flashed into his mind, the moment when he had said, "I didn't sacrifice my pride. Maybe that's why I lost everything," Melody said to herself. Sometimes you have to heal your heart before you can help others. A few weeks later, the OWN network announced a new documentary. After the verdict, the real story of Huntsville, it included both Melody and Martell, but Melody flatly refused. "I don't want to be a spectacle again. My story is now being written in life, not in books." But Martell relented this time to tell his truth. In the interview, he said, "I learned that a moment's anger burns years of love. I just want to be with my kids now, not on a show, not in a court, just in their hearts." This interview went viral. People wrote kind words for him for the first time. Someone said, "He's changing. Maybe he's really a father now," someone wrote. Melody watched the video in silence. A soft smile appeared on his lips. If he really has changed, then maybe there is hope for all of us. The next event of Mothers for Peace took place in New York. There were hundreds of women, journalists, and a few famous faces in the hall. Melody went on stage and said, "We've all seen pain. But remember, pain is not an enemy, it's a guide. If you're crying today, you'll be making someone laugh tomorrow." Applause. But at that moment, Melody saw a face in the crowd. Martell. He was sitting quietly in the back row. After the speech, he approached her. "I didn't come for the past, just to say thank you." Melody looked down and said, "The past is a heavy burden to all of us, Martell. But we can only lift it when we are sure that we are not afraid to fall again." Martell nodded. "Maybe now I'm not afraid to fall, to learn." In the evening, Melody was putting the children to sleep. The little girl asked, "Mom, is Dad okay now?" Melody replied, "Yes, son. Sometimes people get better with time. They just need a little patience. Then she went to the window and stood. There was a moon in the sky, and the lights of Huntsville below were calm. Melody said to herself, "Perhaps this is the moment called peace, when the heart softens without change." Spring had returned to Huntsville. The winter had subsided, and the green leaves of the trees on the city streets heralded a new beginning. But in both Melody and Martell's hearts, there were still traces of those old wounds that had faded with time, but had not been completely erased. MartellHolt had now made a new rule for his life: quiet toil and limited conversation. He would train early in the morning at his gym, then work on new business ideas. People used to say, "He has changed." But when he sits alone in his room at night, he cannot take his eyes off the picture of children on the wall. There was only one question running through his mind: am I really being a better father, or just showing the world? One day, his friend and former business partner Mark Wilson came to his office. "Martell, you're getting an opportunity. A big real estate company wants you on their team." But what?" asked Martell, startled. Mark said slowly, "They have stipulated that you give a joint interview with Melody. Show people that you two are no longer enemies." Martell was silent for a few moments. Then he took a deep breath and said, "If it's really for someone's benefit, I'll do it, but only on one condition. The interview will tell the truth." No show, MelodyShari was no longer just a mother, but an inspiration. Mothers for Peace was now working in 5 major cities of the country. News channels and universities used to call him as a speaker. People would cry and clap in his lectures, but as fame grew, so did personal comfort. One evening, while she was sitting in a hotel room making her speaking notes, a notification came on his phone: breaking news. MartellHolt and MelodyShari to reunite for a public interview. He took a deep breath. "Sometimes you have to pay for comfort," she said to herself. The next day, his manager said, "Melody, if you do this interview, people will get the message that healing is really possible." Melody replied quietly, "I'm not going to show anyone that we're ideal. I just want to show that a man can rise after falling." There was an eerie silence in the TV studio, the light of the cameras, the walk of the reporters, and the story of the years between the two. Melody was dressed in white hair in a simple bun, face dignified. Martell in a black suit, eyes downcast but tone soft. The producer signaled, "Begin." The anchor asked the first question. "Melody, as you sit with your ex-husband today, do you feel fear or relief?" Melody smiled and said, "No fear, no comfort. Just the truth. We both face the truth, and the truth is never easy." The anchor turned to Martell. "Martell, people say you learn by losing everything. Is that true?" Martell said slowly, "I lost 2 things in my life: pride and time. Pride took away relationships, and time showed me that children are won by the heart, not by the court." After hearing this sentence, there was silence in the studio for a moment. The anchor said, "Can you two ever forgive each other?" Melody rolled her eyes, then said, "Forgiveness is when the wound stops speaking. And maybe now my wounds are silent." After the interview, when they both left the studio, the media cameras started flashing again. But this time it didn't feel like noise. It felt like an end. A few days later, a new scandal erupted on social media. A blogger alleged that Mothers for Peace's funds were irregular. Melody was accused of using the donations for personal expenses. News, videos, comments, everything changed in an instant. The woman who was once a hero has now become a headline. That night, Melody was sitting alone in her room. The phone was ringing, but she was not picking up. Finally, he heard a knock at the door. When he opened the door, there was Martell in front of him. He mused. "Are you okay?" Melody said coldly, "Why have you come?" "The media has found a new topic. You should be calm." Martell replied mildly, "I've been looking for peace since the day you left. I'm not here to clean you up. I'm here to remind you that you are truly not alone." Melody's lips trembled a little. but she held it back. Truth is drowned in the noise of the world. Martell, then we have to raise that voice again. 2 days later, Martell posted a video on social media. I have known MelodyShari for years. He put up with a lot of mistakes from me, but he never cheated. If anyone says she can be dishonest with funds, they are lying. I am not her husband, but a witness to her truth as a human being. The video was shared millions of times. People said, "This is not the Martell we saw on TV. This is a changed man." Meanwhile, the examination of the financial records of Melody's foundation was completed. Everything came out clear and transparent. The media apologized, but the wound that was inflicted does not heal quickly. Melody wrote a post. Sometimes you have to be strong, not silent, to prove your truth. The noise itself subsides in time. All that remains is persistence. Time passed. The conversation between Melody and Martell was no longer just about children. Sometimes they would meet at a school event. Sometimes at a community function. Melody was beginning to feel that Martell's tone was no longer bitter, but gentle. One day Melody's son said, "Mom, today Dad said he wants to see your speech. Will you let him?" Melody smiled. "If your heart desires." Yes. On the day of the speech, Martell sat in the back row. When Melody said, "I've learned from life that man doesn't fall. He bends, and that bending is what makes us human." So a smile came to Martell's lips, as if he had admitted in his heart that this was the truth. At night, Melody got a message on her phone. "You didn't just make a speech today. You made history." Martell Melody replied, "If history is indeed going to be made, we make it better together." 6 months had passed. Mothers for Peace had now gained international recognition. Melody was to be honored with the Woman of Strength Award at a major conference in New York. She stood on the stage, hundreds of faces staring at her. He grabbed the mic and said, "I was once ashamed of my weaknesses, but today I am proud of those weaknesses because she became my strength. If I hadn't fallen, I might not have known what it was like to have the courage to get up, and if I hadn't forgiven, maybe I wouldn't have this peace today." The audience applauded, and many wiped away tears. Martell sat after the stage. When Melody went backstage, there was Martell waiting for her. "You changed not yourself today, but the whole world." Melody said softly, "Change isn't easy, Martell, but if the intention is true, time will come." Martell replied with a slight smile, "I learned from losing you that peace comes from within, not with anyone else. Now I want my children to see a better person, not a father." Melody looked up at him and said, "Perhaps this is the true end of our story, to live not with wounds, but with truth." It was a Saturday evening. Martell came to pick up his children. Melody opened the door. There was no silence between the two. That day, just a soft smile. The little boy ran to Martell. "Daddy, we're all going on a picnic today. Isn't Mama going too?" Melody saw the sparkle in the children's eyes. "Yeah, why not? No limits today." There was the laughter of children in the park, the shadows of the trees, and a new color in the Huntsville air. It was as if the universe itself had allowed them to smile again. Martell said slowly, "I won't thank you, Melody, because you didn't just forgive, you gave me a second chance to be human." Melody replied, "Instead of thanking you, just promise never to spill your wounds on others again. Let them heal." The pictures of their new relationship went viral. People wrote, "It's not just a reunion, it's redemption. It's true that love never ends. It just changes form." At a time when Huntsville became a city of controversy, now he becomes an example of hope, forgiveness, and peace. At night, Melody opens the diary kept by her bed. The page reads, "I have realized that happiness is not about winning. It is about finding peace. And peace comes when you learn to change yourself instead of blaming others. Martell is no longer my past, but the lesson of my story, and my children, they are the future of my story." She closes the pen, the end, but not really. The next morning, Melody goes to drop her children off at school. Martell stands in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Peace offer. Melody, she smiles and takes the cup. Accepted. Both take the children to the school gate. The little boy turns around and says, "Daddy, Mama, you two look good together." They both look at each other, and for a moment, all of Huntsville's wounds fade away. For the first time in the city today, no one made noise, no one accused, no one complained, because everyone saw that if love is true, it lives even after hate. The story of Melody and Martell is not that they reunited, rather, they recognized themselves again. If you've ever been hurt in a relationship, so remember, forgiveness is strength, not weakness. If you've lost someone, it doesn't mean all is lost. Maybe life wants you to find yourself again. If you are a parent, teach your children that anger is temporary, but peace is eternal. And if you've ever been broke like Melody or Martell, so no. Your breaking is the beginning of your becoming. Life asks of you only one promise: the courage to fall down.